Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. The video you're about to watch is in two parts, again, and as most topic videos are. It'll cover the first gessoing of a canvas. The second part will show the steps I take in sanding and in between, followed by the second coat. So I hope you enjoy this, and please leave a like and subscribe. So let's talk about canvas preparation. So these are the two canvases that I prepped yesterday, started prepping yesterday. So you might remember this one is the one we stretched, and this one is the one that I had painted on, and we cleaned all the paint off of it, and now we want to get it ready to paint on again. So now this canvas is nice and thick. You can see how thick it is here. So you can beat up on this canvas a lot easier than you can on a economy canvas like at Michael's. But anyway, let's start with a clean canvas. So this is on this is a cotton canvas, a painter's canvas, just like you buy down at the Home Depot. We're gonna put some white gesso on it just today, and we won't be able to. Well, we probably could finish it today, but we'll just put the first coat of gesso on both of these this morning, and then the next day or so we'll continue with the rest of it. If you can't wait that long, go look in the video library. You'll see some other videos I did about prepping canvases and sanding them and all that kind of good stuff. Alright, so one thing I do recommend when you're putting gesso on is, I bought these house painter brushes, but you can buy some cheap ones like at the flea market, but I don't find them to be very satisfactory, and I'll tell you why. They're too stiff. When I'm trying to get gesso down into the canvas and in between the threads and all that stuff, they just don't give me the finish that I'm looking for. Alright, so Bruce, I am doing really well. Alright, so let's talk about just the canvas itself and what we're going to do and then what we can expect. So I've got some gesso that I made, some white gesso. I've also got two different types of black gesso, which we'll talk about when we do the other canvas. But this white gesso, now this is a raw piece of canvas. So when we gesso this, we're going to pick up some of these little tiny, I can't even show them to you, but let me see if I can brush some off. You pick up these little bitty tiny pieces of fiber. You can take your brush, or if you've got a stiff brush, I think I do here around here somewhere. Take a stiff brush like this one. This is the brush that I learned not to buy cheap brushes. It's just a cheap little brush, but it's so stiff. But it works pretty good for knocking these little fibers off. You just kind of. Now, when we gesso this though, there's still going to be some of these fibers on there, and that's okay. They'll roll up like little balls on the canvas. That's okay, because when we get ready to put the second coat on, we'll sand those off, and they'll come right off without causing any problems. All right, so that's ready. That's good enough. That's pretty good. One thing about gesso is it's really good for applying on canvas like this, but it also, if you'll listen, you can maybe tell by the tone. I don't know if you can or not by the microphone, but if you listen to this, listen to that one. And this one here's we've cleaned most of the stuff off, but it's still got some gesso on it. But listen to it. You hear how much tighter it is. So you can see it. Well, I don't know if you can see on this side, but it's not gessoed inside, but it's gessoed into the fibers, so it's very, very tight, very firm to paint on it, and I like that. All right, now let's talk about relative smoothness. This canvas is gonna, if you just put gesso on it straight up, it would be it'd have a lot of tooth, which means the surface would be very rough, which is great for landscapes, especially for a beginning landscape artist, because it will allow you to get some textures that you normally would have to work up to with regular oil paint. But you can actually sand these down really, really smooth, just as linen smooth as silk when you get done. But we'll talk about that on the next episode. All right, so let's go to the gesso. So this is, well, I'll tell you what, before we do that, I've got just a little misting bottle here. I used to either spray my gesso or spray my cat when he keeps interrupting me in my Actually, I don't even have to spray him. All I gotta do is pick it up. And he won't run away, but he'll slink away. You spray him, he'll just stand there. He won't. But he doesn't really like to be sprayed, but he will tolerate it. But it keeps him out of my hair sometimes. Not usually though. He'll usually just come right back. All right. So this gesso. I bought these jars on Amazon. I'm pretty happy with these jars. They're 16-ounce jars. This is gesso that I made. And when I finish this, usually after I finish the second coat of, or second mix of gesso in this, I just kind of toss it. Alright, now gesso of any kind you buy is always going to settle. So when you first pick up a jar, if you haven't opened it before, you can shake it like I do at paint store. Or you can just stir it up. Or you can use like one of these little stirrers you stick on the end of your drill. That's how I make it, but I'm just stirring it up here with a couple little popsicle sticks. Now this gesso that I'm using today is a gesso that I made, but it's not. Hey Willard, how are you today? It's not as creamy as I usually use, but it's okay. It firms up really good by the time you get done. All right, so I've wet the canvas just lightly on the surface. I have not wet it on the edges. You can, it won't hurt anything. So let's get on with putting some gesso on here. So I typically start with the edge, on the top edge. And since I usually put 2 to 3 coats on, I'll flip it over to the other way when I put the next coat on and do the one remaining edge. I hope you guys can see that. Let me see. Yeah, you can see it going on that edge. Then I kind of just come over the front edge just a little bit. So this brush is really soft. Yeah, I should probably stir it a little bit better. We'll pick up some particulate from the plaster that's in it. Sometimes it'll beat up on your canvas, but it's okay. Get some on there, you can either flick it off with a brush or you can leave it on there and just sand it off later. Doesn't matter, one way or the other. Just, if you're ODC, you might, OCD, I mean, you might have to stop and get it off. But I don't usually find that I need to do that. Alright, so then I tend to go back and forth here across the front. That's why I came in on the edges, kind of like trimming the wall. Hey Carolyn. You guys feel free to ask any questions if you have any. So now the water that I put on here, of course this is acrylic gesso, so the water that I put on here will help it to soak in between the weave of the canvas. You see we're picking up some of the little cotton balls. So we're just kind of pushing toward the edge a little bit, and once we can. And once we can't, we won't worry about it. We'll sand them off later. Sanding is not that big a deal. Not like sanding furniture. Now you might wonder what I'm doing over to the side. I'm going to take the brush to the side other than getting paint. I've got a Bob Ross brush scrubber in there, and I just flick it across and it gets the loose things off the end of the brush. That's all. And that acrylic will dry on the little feeder bar thing before I get ready to oil paint again. So, all right. So we got a layer on. Now, you may be able to tell it on the video, you may not be able to tell it on the video, but if you were here, you'd see just a little bit of gray areas here and there, and that's typical for a first coat. Now, again, I've got about yay much, and I'm going to go back on here, and I'm going to go from the bottom to the top. You don't have to actually wet the brush again to do that, it's just easier. It just puts a little extra more slickness on the canvas. Alright, and we're going to go back and forth again, except this time we're going to alternate where we started and where we stopped. Now let's just go both ways just for the heck of it. Alright, now this time, I'm going to wet the brush one more time. We're going to come down this way. And that will make sure that we went all 4 directions. I have seen some artists, guys or gals, I can't remember which, would also like to kind of go like at a diagonal like that. don't usually do it that way, but everybody has their way of doing it. I don't know if there's in art that there's actually a right way or a wrong way in most cases, but all right. Then I kind of just try to decide, you know, do I want this canvas, do I plan to use it in a portrait mode, or do I plan to use it in landscape mode like it's laying now? So if I think I'm going to use it in portrait mode, I will finish by going up and down. And if I think it's going to be in landscape mode, I usually finish by going back and forth like this. All right, so we've gone over it multiple times. We're not actually laying additional layers down because it's not drying that fast. But there we go. So that's the unfinished canvas. And in a day or so, we'll come back and we'll finish this canvas up. All right, let's go to the canvas that we reclaimed. Somebody asked me, could you buy like used canvases at Goodwill and reuse those? And the answer to that question is, yeah, sure you can. And then when you wear them out, like I've done this one, you just put another piece of canvas, take that canvas off, put another piece of canvas on it. All right, so now this canvas, so this is another 12 by 16, just like the one we just had. It's a stretched canvas of my own that I made, because I like to control. I'm a control freak when it comes to that stuff. All right, so I could use a homemade, oh, you know what, I want to do that. So here's another little secret, or a little trick of the trade. I don't know if it's a secret, because I'm about to tell it to you. I just use sandwich bags and put those right over the top like this. And then when you screw the lid on, you can kind of pinch that bag in between the threads, and your lid won't stick. You screw it on, you've got any gesso at all in the threads, or in the threads of the lid or the threads of the bottle, it'll dry and your lid will get stuck. So, all right. So today, I thought while we were doing this canvas, in case some of you guys wanted to use Bob Ross black gesso, I'm gonna use that. I'll talk a little bit about it. I do use this, and the reason that I use it when I can, actually you'll see here I found it on sale at clearance for $4.24. I don't know that I would pay $17 for a bottle. That's crazy. That's crazy talk right there. But that's what they charge. But it is good gesso. I will not, can't say anything bad about gesso. Matter of fact, I find it at least comparable to the gesso that you can buy at Hobby Lobby. So, the problem I have with the Hobby Lobby gesso is if you let it sit, especially if you buy a big bottle of it, if you let it sit for very long, the glue starts to separate and it smells something terrible. So, alright, let's get on with this. So, let's see. The first thing about this particular gesso, it's very smooth. It's not particularly thick, which is actually, that's kind of good, but it's got a lot of pigment in it, so it's really dark. It's a really, really dark gesso. Now on this canvas, I doubt that we will see any beating up of balls, because this canvas has been used before. So I've already eliminated all those first time I used it. But it's the same routine for me, back and forth, back and forth. I've not this gesso. I've not used the white gesso by Bob Ross, but I have used the black gesso a lot before I started making my own. I just couldn't pass up $4.24 for a bottle. That's pretty good. That's pretty cheap. So anyway, I've never found it to separate. I like the squeeze bottle versus the jar because it keeps it fresh. But like I say, the glue doesn't separate. It has really good opacity to it. So your canvas will be nice and dark. So now we're going down. We did on the first canvas. So here we were, this used canvas, and we just put some Easy Off on it yesterday. and scraped it off, and then washed it with some Dawn dishwashing detergent and rinsed it really, really good 2 times. And then always make sure you get that Dawn off of there, because if you don't, it's going to cause you problems. All right. So now, if you pick up a used canvas that's got an acrylic painting on it, you don't want to spray that with Dawn, because Dawn really is helping you get rid of the oil paint. So what my recommendation is just lightly sand it, and then just put acrylic gesso over the top of the stuff. There is something, if the gesso separates, you can just stir it really good, or you can shake it really good. Clean up a little bit of a mess I made here. Hang on a second. And you'll notice though, especially with the Hobby Lobby stuff, when it separates, the glue starts to come back to the top. It's actually the first time I had it happen to me, I thought it had spoiled because it smelled so bad, but that's just the smell of the glue. And actually, when you take it and you stir it again, if you stir it thoroughly, the smell will go away almost immediately, and you'll be good to go. So, oh Jane, I tell you, if I didn't reuse canvases, I've got probably 50 paintings sitting here on the shelf left over from the show, even though I sold quite a few. But yeah, especially canvases that I've done. I tend not to reuse economy canvases, but I will reuse the stretcher bars on the economy canvas. I paint on economy canvases lots of times. There's nothing wrong with that. I just like painting on my own. All right, so here's the deal. We'll be back tomorrow with another short video. We will take these 2 canvases and we will sand them. We'll put another prep coat on, and then we'll come back with another short. Actually, I think I'll take one of these maybe tonight. I'll go ahead and sand it, and we'll get maybe I can get another coat on it tonight, and then when we come back, we can sand it tomorrow and kind of look at the finished product. And then this one, maybe one of these other canvases, I'll take and we'll pick it up from where we are and talk about sanding and prep. So, all right, that's kind of the deal. If you want to make your own gesso, there is a video in my library about making gesso on your own. It's pretty easy to do and pretty cheap to do. And if you're like me, I use a lot of gesso. So hope you guys are having a good week, and we will see you next time. All right. Trying to get my grit straightened out here. They changed the color on my sandpaper recently. All right, so we'll start with the black canvas. We got the white canvases over here too. Now this is the Now this canvas, I would expect, and I'm sure that it is now that I'm touching it. This is the black canvas that we did the other day. This is a canvas that I stretched. You can see that because it's rough on the edges. And so, but this is a canvas that we reused. So I'll expect this canvas today, when I start to work on it, it will be smoother than this white canvas over here. This one that has 1 coat of gesso. Now, remember the other day, I don't know if you can remember or not, but but you can hear now, this canvas is a lot tighter than it was. That's because of the gessos, and it's shrunk the canvas up a little bit, and it's stiffened it. So, all right. So I'm going to start off with just feeling this. You could start with 120 grit. There's not any of those little cotton fiber things on here that you usually get with a fresh canvas, but let's see if I don't know if I can pinch this out or not. Hang on a second. I don't think so. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I do. Wow, look at me. Someday I'll figure all this out. All right, so I'm just going to start here with some 150 grit, because this is pretty smooth. I'm just going to put it down flat, and you can use a sanding block if you want. It's fairly easy to use. You can get one of those at Home Depot or Lowe's or someplace. There's the block of wood if you want to. My hand works better for me, so I'm just going to lay it down flat like this on the. And I'm just going to go in a circle. Move down about a half a step. Missed that corner. Then I'm going to turn it over. Do the other side. And the reason for that, the reason I turn it over is it helps me maintain a better pressure. Alright. So I'm going to move up to 180 grit now. Just make this a little bit smoother. So on the 180 grit, I'll make it a little bit, circles a little bit bigger too. Alright. Move this off. Now, as you can see, it's taking it off. So, Sunny D, hey Lynn, you got to catch me live. Well, you know, I wish I had a regular schedule, but I don't. I'm retired, so you know, I got eight ricks of wood. You might hear a thumping in the background. My wife took over my wood stacking duties for me, so I could do this string today. So. But I got to get back out there and start on it when I get done. All right, so let's get. That's smooth enough. I don't want to get too smooth with the first coat of gesso because I want the gesso to stick. If you make it too smooth, it doesn't stick as well, in my experience. So if you remember from the last video, we're using Bob Ross black gesso. A little unusual for me. I have my own gesso that I make. But we're using this just because I need to use it up. I don't know. Here's my little spray bottle. I'm going to spray a little bit of water on here. And I'm just going to kind of wipe it with my hand, like this. Now I'll take a paper towel. A little bit of acid. Take a little bit of a paper towel. I don't know if you guys have seen Kevin Hill's latest video, but he's basically stopped using paper towels and he's using shop towels. So I checked that out today. Those things are like $12 for 5 rolls. I'm not gonna do that. It's crazy. So, but I'm glad Kevin likes it. It got me interested enough to go look while I was out. So. Alright, so now we're just going to come back. All I did was just wipe a little bit of the water off of that. And then, you can't really tell this unless you go back and look at the last video, but the gesso's flowing on really smooth. The second coat usually doesn't take quite as much gesso. Usually. Never can tell though. I think a lot of it depends on the humidity in the air. Like that. Maybe the thickness of the canvas. I had some questions on from the last video. I wanted to kind of cover, so let me think while I'm doing that. So I'm just going opposite, then I'll go down, and then I'll go back across again. There was a question about is this really worth it? You know, it's kind of a personal thing. It's a money saver. For me, it lets me control the entire creative process. You know, I can make any size canvas that I want, just by whatever stretcher bars, all the way from little 2-inch ones, or I think 2-inch ones as small as I've seen them. But so if I want to make a 16 by 2 inch, I could do that. Excuse me. But mainly, it's just about controlling the creative process. I like this particular feel of this canvas. I think if I was painting portraits, which I don't really have any interest in painting portraits, or I don't really have any interest in still lifes too much just yet. Although I may do one of those sometime this year, I don't know. I can't imagine that. I don't know. I just don't really have an interest in painting still lifes or portraits. I really like good landscapes and sort of like sci-fi scenes. So that's where I spend these canvases work really well for that. I think maybe if I was going to shoot, I know when I did my, recently when I did the commission, I used these types of canvases, and customer is highly satisfied. So, you know, whatever suits you, whatever suits you, whatever suits your customer. Hey, Kathy. Hey, Jean. All right, so this is the other canvas. Now you'll notice right along in here, you'll notice a little bit of a shadow. That's where that's when I was doing the other one. Filled down the video, actually dropped about 5 drops of paint on the black gesso on the edge of that. So, all right, let me switch this out of the way and switch brushes. But before we do that, we're going to work on sanding this one. Now this one, let me see if I can show you. Since I'm zoomed up, maybe I can. If I turn it this way. I don't know. Look on the monitor and see if I can tell the difference here. Alright, yeah. You can see some of these shadows, like right along in here. That's some of those little cotton things I was telling you about that came up. So this is one coat on this canvas. We'll do 3 on this one. But you can hear how much stiffer it is already. Alright, so let's sand it first. We're going to start off with 150 grit. Oh, did I say hi to everybody? Hi, Jean. I think I said hi to everybody. So we're going to start off with 150 grit. Same episode. I'm just feeling around, see if I feel any of those. There's definitely a difference between where I've sanded. I don't know if you guys, let me shift this and see if you can see. I don't know if you can see the difference on the camera. But this part's not sanded yet versus sanding. You'll also notice sanding's quite a bit louder on this one. We're getting all those little balls off of there. Anything else on there? I think that pretty much. So this next coat's going to go on a lot more smooth. We'll fix that little shadow and a couple of drops of black gesso I got on there. We'll shift up to 180 grit. All these sandpapers you can buy at Lowe's or Home Depot or just your local hardware store. If you have Ace is the place where you're up for hardware man. That's actually where I buy my brushes from. Not the ones that I do the gesso with. From a little Ace guy here in the neighborhood. I buy local. Now another reason to do this, another reason that I do my own gesso, my own canvases, is that a lot of places you buy canvas, and canvases, like economy canvases, some that I bought at Jerry's, and I don't have a Dick Blick close to me, but in researching it seems to be true of them as well. They get a lot of their canvases from China, and in China, they actually spray the gesso on, just running it down an assembly line. Interestingly enough, they've adapted that technology, and they can reproduce original oil paintings the same way, using their computers and their high-speed conveyor sprayers. So a lot of artwork that you see for sale at Lowe's and Home Depot and department stores are spray painted by computers in China and sold as original artwork. So they're competing with me. So hey, you know what? Anything I can do to keep China from making a buck will be okay with me. That's my political statement for the day. Does it sound far away? No, Kathy, I did not. That was actually the black paint was it's actually black gesso. Is Bob Ross black gesso. This white gesso that I'm about to put on there is a video in the library that tells you how to make it, and it has all the ingredients on there. It involves, let's see if I can recall this off the top of my head, 2 parts water, 2 parts plaster of Paris. I use DAP, plaster of Paris. 2 parts PVC glue, 4 parts pigment, whatever color you want to use, like white, or recently I made blue gesso, sort of sea green gesso. But anyway, but you can look at that video, takes you through step by step by step. All right, so we've sanded this. Let's just touch up the edges here. Now, I will follow the same procedure on this canvas in particular, at least one more time, because I'll put 3 coats of gesso on this. Now, on this raw, because this is raw. This was raw canvas, so I'll put 3 coats of gesso on there. The only difference is when the only difference is the sandpaper that I use, instead of using 150 grit and 180 grit, I use 180 grit as the opening sanding grit, and I'll finish it with 320. Now, if I think that maybe the piece that I'm going to use it for is going to have a lot of bushes and trees and stuff like that, I won't even use the 320, because I don't really care if the canvas is smooth. I just don't care. It actually is better for me when it's got more tooth. So it's easier to lay paint down on it. Now, if you're painting something like portraits or still life, you want your canvas to be really smooth. So that's why you would sand it with a higher grit. Does that make sense? Anybody got any questions about that? Sure, Kathy. Kathy, when you look at that video, if you have any questions, you can just send them to me, or you can post them here, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm here to help you guys as much as I can. All right. So while I'm finishing this up, somebody had a couple questions just about me the other day. How long have I been painting, things like that. I've been painting since May of 2016. I learned most of my painting stuff watching videos. Brandon Thomas, Wilson Bickford, on-site painting with Nick Hankins, Bob Ross Company fame. Marion Dutton. I'm a Marion Dutton certified painting partner, so I certainly, and if you ever get a chance, Marion Dutton is actually going to be in the United States, in Tennessee, this year. She's holding a portrait class in Knoxville, Tennessee. If you had a chance to go to that, you should go. You really should go. I've learned quite a bit from Anthony. Now, Anthony's been offline for a couple of weeks. Hopefully he's doing okay. Hopefully he'll be back soon. Anthony and I collaborate on kind of things that we're going to paint. We don't actually, no collaborations right now. We feed off of each other. I'll come up with an idea, and I'll give him an idea, and off we go. Alright. So, this canvas, this gesso went on pretty smooth. It's got a couple of little cotton things here, so I'll sand those off when it dries. They'll come off really easy. There's a couple here. There's a couple that I brushed off here. Like, there's one right here. Let's see if I can pick that off. Can you guys see that dot right in the middle there? That piece of stuff right there. That is not a little cotton thing. That's where I haven't stirred the plaster up hard enough. That's my fault. So I'll need to do that before I use it again next time. I didn't take my time to stir it up when I originally made it. So when you get toward the end of the jar, sometimes your sins will come back and haunt you. All right, last thing I'm going to do here is put a little sandwich bag over it and screw this shut. That'll keep your threads clear so that the lid doesn't lock on when it dries.